President Trump offering this response to the No Kings protesters that gathered across our country this weekend. Watch.
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. It looks like it was. We're checking it out. The demonstrations were very small, very ineffective, and the people were whacked out. When you look at those people, those are not representative of the people of our country. I'm not a king. I work my off to make our country great. That's all it is. I'm not a king at all.
Joining me now to react is independent journalist Evita Duffy Alfonso. Evita, did these protests accomplish anything?
Well, I would say no, they did not. And I thought the president's points were spot on. So first of all, he's right. These protests were Soros funded, Open Society Foundation funded. And the other thing is, if you looked around at these protests, Todd, everyone was old. I have never seen a movement where there's energy and excitement and everybody's 55 and older. It's just impossible. It reminded me of the Women's March in 2016 or these Doge protests where just everybody is elderly. There's no youth and energy behind this, which means it's pretty inorganic, which President Trump is right. It was inorganic. And if you think about what they're fighting for, right, anti-ICE protests, right, like they're angry that President Trump is deporting illegals. Who's that good for? Working class Americans. So there's a generational divide here, but then there's also, I think, a class divide in these protests. The people who are here are wildly out of touch with what normal, regular Americans want from this country.
And quite frankly, to your earlier point, a lot of those individuals, we don't have an exact number, but a lot of them were paid to be there. And that is concerning because that's not necessarily the organicness that you want to see in our society when you protest. Meantime, the DOJ has reportedly found evidence that Democrats are skewing crime information ahead of the midterms. The report from Fox Business senior correspondent Charlie Gasparino reads in part, quote, "The number of felonies in Chicago, not to mention New York, Los Angeles, and Portland, Oregon, is declining only because woke prosecutors are knocking down felonies to something less severe for political reasons," DOJ sources say. It looks like the Democrats are trying to get voters to ignore reality, and Evita, it looks like they just got caught.
Yes, and I understand why they would want to, because our cities are dying. They are dying. When I was a student at the University of Chicago, which is the south side of Chicago, classmates of mine were pistol whipped on their way to and from class. Classmates of mine were murdered for using public transit. And things have only gotten worse in Chicago. That was the time of Lori Lightfoot. Now we have Brandon Johnson. And what happened in 2020? We were told that law and order is racist. We were told that we have to empty out our psychiatric institutions and our prisons, and somehow that will make social justice prevail in America. And all that happened was that law-abiding citizens have suffered. We have been destroyed by blue city soft-on-crime policies. And I'm someone from rural America. I've always been from rural America. And sometimes people in rural America like to ignore what's happening in our blue cities. We say, that's not us. We have nothing to do with that. And the problem is we can't have a country that is thriving and surviving if our cities are dying. So it matters to everyone. And I'm glad that the DOJ is calling them out for their lies.
Yeah, to that point, though, Evita, the DOJ expects the upcoming reports that they have on this study, or what they discovered, will highlight worsening urban conditions, to your point, population flight from blue cities, and the economic consequences that, like you mentioned, impact us all. So, are we going to get any change from the voters? Are they going to stop voting for these politicians that are creating what we see in these cities? Or is it going to be more of the same from here on?
I have a big fear that it's going to be more of the same, because if you look at what's even happening in New York right now, what is Zoran Mamdani going to do for New Yorkers, right? He's somebody who's saying we're going to open up government-run grocery stores. We're going to have free public transit, which means that, of course, then they're going to become homelessness encampments. These are people who aren't interested in actually creating solutions for people in these cities. And unfortunately, it's a sad cycle, but they're going to continue to vote for these terrible politicians who perpetuate the blue city crime, and things are only going to get worse, and the people who know everything's bad are going to continue to flee, and it is a very sad state for America.
When you look at Connecticut, you look at Westchester County, you look at New Jersey, the real estate inquiries in those areas in light of the potential and likely win of Zohran Mamdani is intense. People are spending hundreds of thousands above asking just to get out of the city. Avita Duffy Alfonso, thank you.
Democrats making a show of their opposition, joining nationwide protests over the weekend as the shutdown seems to have no end in sight. President Trump telling Maria Bartiromo it's because Democrats lack strong leadership.
The government is shut down. How long is this going to last?
Yeah, look, the Democrats are kamikazes right now. They're kamikaze pilots right now. They have nothing going. They have no future. They have incompetent candidates.
Fox Team coverage, Lara Trump, she is standing by. David Spun has a look at the scrutiny over funding for these demonstrations. But first, let's get to Chad Program with the latest on Capitol Hill. Hi, Chad.
Dana, good morning. The No Kings rallies across the country did nothing to dislodge the government shutdown. It was progressive political theater. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi snapped a crown in half at one rally. Democrats are rooted in their views.
And I'm here today to share with you some unsurprising news. We are not on the verge of an authoritarian takeover. We are in the middle of an authoritarian takeover. But Trump has not won. Our democracy is in peril, but it can be saved. It is up to us to save us.
The No Kings rallies were a nationwide spectacle. Many prominent Democrats, ranging from Senators Adam Schiff to Cory Booker, took part. Republicans argued that the government shutdown helped them make their point about the No Kings rallies. Now, the protests were peaceful, but there were arrests after demonstrators clashed with police near an ICE facility in Portland. Everyone's predictions about the government shutdown are out the window.
You shouldn't ask me because I'm the guy who said it'll only last 5 days, John. But I will tell you, a couple of Democrat senators recently indicated that they think this is going to go till at least the 1st of November. These guys are playing with fire. The Democrats are, especially Democrats in the Senate.
Now, Republicans believe that Democrats will feel pressure about the shutdown. That's because federal workers are missing paychecks, and there's a slowdown in government services. The longest shutdown ran more than a month in 2018 and 2019. Dana?
All right, Chad, thank you.
Major No Kings protests erupting in just about every major U.S. city this weekend, with several Democrat lawmakers speaking at these events, despite criticisms from the GOP that these rallies are just a distraction from the government shutdown. Meanwhile, Fox News Digital reporting the Trump administration is looking into RICO charges against those who are funding these protests. The No Kings movement is reportedly funded by a group of nonprofits, unions, and other groups. The president says his team will be looking into that. Watch.
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. It looks like it was. We're checking it out. The demonstrations were very small, very ineffective. And the people were whacked out. When you look at those people, those are not representative of the people of our country.
All right, Paul, you found yourself wrapped up in the demonstration here in the city. Talk to us about what you observed.
So I was coming back from the hit with Kaylee. She's got the new morning show on Saturday. It's doing very well. I was very flattered to be on. I was walking back, got stuck in traffic, and I jumped out of the car, actually, and I walked into it, and it was very colorful. It was peaceful. So I started taking some photos, a couple of salient points. Number one, the average age was the average age of New York City's July temperature, all right? It was just a Woodstock reunion, all right? That's what the thing looked like, and I'm sorry, that's what it was. It was uniformly white almost entirely. I mean, there's some, of course not, it's not all, but it struck me that it was all old white hippies. A couple of things also, I think. It brought home to me the importance of Charlie Kirk. Because the only way the Democrats are going to replace a vanishing demographic, which is what I just discussed, is the young people that Charlie Kirk got to and who now we understand are not going to be uniformly left, which is what the received wisdom had been in the past because the left owned the teachers union and all of that. And the last thing I would say is just while it was peaceful and while it was colorful and they were chanting and all sort of stuff, and the vibe was very sort of hippie peaceful. There were radical groups there everywhere. There was a heavy communist presence, socialism, revolutionaries, and everything was Nazi, Nazi, Nazi. Trump is a Nazi. Trump is the Fuhrer, constantly. And, you know, All I can say is if they don't get over their obsession with Donald Trump and him being a Nazi and him being a king and him being a dictator, they're never going to be able to get to the kind of policy that actually compels.
Yeah, I was subjected to a lot of the protests this weekend in D.C. and the neighboring areas, Alexandria, Arlington. I was struck by that same demographic that Paul describes, how elderly they were, how ineffective and nonsensical the signs were, how self-congratulatory all of them were. Kellyanne, what are your thoughts?
You'd think this group would be so happy about no tax on Social Security. But apparently they take their online venom and brought it right out into the streets. I saw them, too, in a couple of places. I think they are at once pathetic and menacing. I do think there's a dangerous element to them because some of these signs, for example, we just showed one. I want to repeat it. It said, which heals faster, Trump's ear or Erica's heart, referring to Charlie Kirk's widow. People were applauding the death. There it is, the death of Charlie Kirk, which means that they're okay with political violence. Even Kamala Harris took a beat to say there's no place for political violence in America. Well, there is, and these are her supporters. And I do want to say I felt there's no information, no inspiration. There was nothing new about this. I didn't hear any new charge or complaint or, oh, let's try to impeach him. How retro. Let's try to indict him. Let's try to destroy his family, his business, him. Let's keep him in the big house, never again the White House. They are a bunch of whiners while he's a winner. They are losers. And look, they have a right to protest, but I have to say, I don't think you have a right to threaten the life of a sitting president. And some of them have done exactly that. As pathetic as they are, they love attention. And I do worry there will be copycat killers out there. If you're scrawling it on a bullet and you're scrawling it on a sign, someone in the Democratic Party has to stand up and say, we can't have this.
Yeah, and there seems to be a drumbeat. I had the Attorney General running incumbent in Virginia on last hour. And Miaris was telling me, you know, what it was like for his mother who left Cuba and how much this moment looks like that. We talked about an assassination culture. The left seems comfortable with where they are in their messaging, whether they're carrying the flags of assassination culture or not. They're allowing people to do it for them. And I agree with you. I mean, this is an example. Those signs, that's one thing. Who's paying for it? That's another. Alexander Soros is a lot farther to the left, we know, than his dad, George, ever could be. He's got the purse strings now, and I look at you, Cheryl, and what he does with that money really matters. So those RICO charges, I'm looking to see, you know, is there complicity with that cash?
Well, I didn't bring my forensic accounting hat today to the program, but I will tell you this. 200 organizations have organized, were the organizers behind this, right? But you know some of these names. Indivisible is the main one. ACLU, Move On, it goes on and on. Open Society Foundation, that is Soros. Did they funnel money to any of these 200 organizations? That takes the accounting, and that's the time I did not have today. I will tell you this, though. You've got to get permits. You've got to get police out there. You've got to get the signs. You've got to get the messaging out. To have millions of people out there, that is not a cheap endeavor. And I will also say that there is a company called Crowds on Demand that has a CEO, and you can pay them to go out and protest for you. You know, up to $500 a day you can make as a paid protester. This is the reality that we're in. So the question mark is, where did the money come from? Christy Walton, by the way, the Walmart heir, she's one of them. She's put in a few million.
So, you know, I can actually speak to Indivisible. That's funded by Soros for this. They did the tech backbone for this entire thing. Ryan Morrow, no relation, did a big report on it. It's been referred to DOJ. That's the RICO you're talking about.
Right.
I have it up on the opsdesk.org. That's my blog. This is going to be a case. Could be a civil case, could be a criminal, but it's going to be a RICO. Trump administration wants this.
Nice.
Next guest went to check out the D.C. area rally. Here were her observations. She said, "It's true, I did not see a king. The crowd was not that big, and street parking was not hard to find. Majority of people are white. There are too many older people, 60s radicals, I guess, and there were so many costumes it seemed like a Halloween party." But she also happens to be a survivor of Mao's revolution. It's Ji Fleet who joins us now. Ji, thank you for being with us here today. Tell us a little more about your experience and what you saw out there at the No Kings rally.
Yeah, first of all, I have to say that I'm an immigrant. I'm a woman. I have identities as well. But in this great country, we don't have kings. We have a democratically elected president and Donald Trump. That's what they are against. And so this is my first time to go to see a lefty rally. And I was really surprised. And first of all, it's quiet. The traffic was light, and there's parking available on the Constitution Avenue and along the malls. And I did not see the crowd until I walked towards the center of the gathering, which is outside the National Gallery of Art. And what I saw is a crowd that is basically white and basically middle-aged and older, and many women. So it's a whiter, older, and women-dominant crowd, and that is basically today's Democratic base. And in Chinese word, they are the 白左. I think this word has already get into the American vocabulary. It's the Chinese word for a white leftist, and that's what they are.
Oh, you learn something new every day. I've never heard that word. Xi, I would imagine, having survived Mao's revolution, you saw some counter-protest, you saw some resistance to a true authoritarian. And I'm curious, having seen that and how it was responded to in the streets by the government, how would you compare that to what you saw in Washington, D.C.?
What I saw today is the Cultural Revolution. Those are the old Red Guards going there because they are backed by power, and in this case, by the Democratic country, Democratic Party. And this is an example that this is still a free country. If this is a tyranny, they should expect to see tanks. And that's in 1989 that the CCP violently suppressed the student demonstration with tanks.
Right. Someone who has seen real authoritarianism and a real tyrannical crackdown on protest has this to say today about the people wearing dinosaur and frog costumes, inflatable, in the streets of America. Xi Van Fleet, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Organizers claim over 7 million Americans turned out for the anti-Trump No Kings rallies over the weekend in all 50 states and in big blue cities like New York, Chicago, LA, and Philly. Gen Z, though, must have been at brunch. Many observers noting that older demonstrators were out in large numbers, among other colorful characters.
Well, we're here to represent the loving, hardworking community of Los Angeles.
Donald Trump, stay the hell out of Chicago!
I feel like you were wearing a T-shirt that was designed to troll Donald Trump.
Yeah, it said, I am Antifa. I was there with my corgi, Clyde. And
Clyde might be Antifa. Clyde might really be Antifa.
Tear up the crown.
This is what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like. In Boston, every day is No King's Day.
Donald Trump is not a king. Donald Trump is a bully.
President Trump not mincing words on how he felt about it.
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. It looks like it was. We're checking it out. The demonstrations were very small, very ineffective, and the people were whacked out. By the way, I'm not a king. I'm not a king. I work my ass off to make our country great. That's all it is. I'm not a king at all.
Jesse Waters, do you think Democrats were just getting together, blow off some steam, or will they be able to turn this into some sort of mobilization, registration of voters, something with longer-term impact?
We'll see. I know my mom was there.
Really?
Can you believe my mom was there?
Which one? New York? Boston?
In Long Island.
Long Island.
It's like sometimes I think I was adopted. It's like they do these things. The Women's March, BLM, the Musk stuff. The issues change, but the one thing that stays the same is Trump. They think this guy's like crack cocaine. They get these big bursts of energy every once in a while, but long term, this has been bad for their health. They've lost the culture. They've lost the media. They've lost 2 of the last 3 elections. They've lost all power in Washington, and they've lost their minds. He looks powerful because Biden was weak. Biden, they raided the Treasury, they invaded the country, they let the foreigners steal all the supply chains, they let the criminals run wild. Biden just sat there. So Trump is doing a lot because he's cleaning up a lot.
And the Democrats love kings. They love the government telling them what to do. Hey, give me a shot. Take over my health care. Tell me what not to say. Remember when he was taking away everyone's First Amendment during the pandemic? Freedom of assembly. They were throwing people in jail for opening a gym. Remember the woman who tried to give someone a haircut? They threw her in jail. They're trying to take your Second Amendment. They're taking your First Amendment. Democrats love it. They love to submit. They love to conform. It's what they do. And you go into these rallies and you interview these people, they have no idea where they're there. I mean, some of them do, like my mom knew. But if you stick a mic in front of their face, they have no clue. They're just kind of walking around. And then sometimes you talk to one of them and they're like, yeah, I hope Trump dies. It's like, oh, my God, these people are nuts. And Trump's no king. If Trump was a king, you wouldn't have had a rally like this. You wouldn't have people going on TV calling him Nazi, and you wouldn't have the government shut down. And all these people on the left saying, oh, the Constitution, I love the Constitution. You called the guys who wrote it racist, old white men, and then you tore down their statues. So don't tell me you love the Constitution. You don't.
Like they're walking around with the 1619 Project in their pocket.
Right.
And the Constitution. Jessica, what did you make of it, though?
So I went to check it out, the Times Square one. I ran into Paul Morrow there as he was doing some surveillance work, taking some pics, which managed to go viral. I, wasn't there that long. It was very peaceful. As reported, the police officers were having a good time hanging out with the folks streaming down 7th Avenue. There were some offensive signs, mostly unoffensive ones that were homemade and didn't come from George Soros's Creative Play for Kids studio. A lot about the importance of human rights and civil rights, some 1776 shout outs, of course, a lot of anti-ICE posters. I've heard the complaints that it was too old and too white. I definitely saw young people there, but there were a good amount of folks who are in their later years, which I think actually means good news for the midterms, because guess who turns out at midterms? Women who do Zumba on the side of a protest. I saw this as a temperature check on what's going on in the second Trump administration. So 2 million more people showed up than they did just in June. As of the count right now, it was 5 in June, now 7 million this time.
Where'd you get
this
that
is
count
also
from?
a bit.
I'm curious where that count comes from. I can't find an official number.
Okay, well,
I
they
tried
do.
really hard.
Well, like the police officers, like the NYPD, did their count of who was there. They estimated it at 100,000, so you get it that way. You also have people who signed up and registered to make sure that they made it known that they were going to go.
It's not an official
also
number.
thought of
It's
it.
from the
Fine.
actual.
You know what? Only 5 people were there. It was me and 4 of my family.
I didn't say that. I just want you to be.
It is.
You're not taking it.
I
at
said
face
it was
value.
estimated. You don't take anything at face value. I get that
right.
now. So I'm just going to use my 90 seconds and then get out of here. I also think it was a bit of a turnout rally for Virginia and New Jersey to get people amped up for the fact that we have these big elections coming up that mean a lot about the future of the party. I wanted to add as well that Gallup's numbers for Americans' Party ID came out. It's shifted in 2025, D +7. It was, we were down -4 at the end of 2024. So it has been a good year in terms of Democratic morale that way.
One thing is strange, Katie, and I'm not saying it wasn't anything. I mean, they had a little signs of life. But they were able to do this immediately after the first term, like on the second day, right? That's when that happened. This is 9 months later. So it's taking them a little bit of time. But I think that's partly because their leadership is so fractured.
Yeah.
And you have Kamala Harris, she's out there. Now Karine Jean-Pierre is going to be out there. Zohar Mamdani is taking over the attention meter. So you have a lot of people out there saying Trump is a king, but they're out there protesting him freely in the streets.
Yeah, they were pretty stunned after Trump beat them again, after they threw everything they possibly could at him, and he still won a second term. So it took them some time to find their sea legs, and they still really haven't, and they are fractured with how they want to go and what direction they're trying to go. And I think the elections that we're going to see in New Jersey and Virginia will be helpful to them to try and find their footing. But when I was at the BLM Plaza in March, when they were ripping it up in Washington, D.C., there was a lone white woman there protesting by herself. And I'm glad that she found some friends this weekend, because I felt very sorry for her. But this is the parade of the woke white liberals. It's the same people you've seen cause shopping for years and years and years. Jesse mentioned the Women's March, BLM. You saw them singing outside of federal government agencies during the Doge cuts. They just show up when they feel like they have something to say, even if it's counterintuitive to what they've been saying or believed in before. I mean, you see American flags now. How many years has it been since they've really embraced the American flag? It used to be racist. They wanted to get rid of it. They were fine with people burning it at their riots in the summer of 2020. But the bigger picture here is this was mostly peaceful, but there are people in these rallies who, when they were asked about whether President Trump, if he were killed, if it would be worth it, if it would be something they were okay with, half of them said it would be fine. You had a staffer from a college in, I believe it was Denver, calling for ICE agents to be shot. So there is this underlying violence problem that the left has. Maybe it's not the woke white liberals who are showing up to different causes with these protests, but they do have this problem on their hands of people who think violence is the option for getting what they want.
So where do we go from here?
Well, the reason why I interrupted Jessica, because I keep hearing the number 7 million, and nobody ever supplies the backup sentence that says from X, because there is no X. There is no official accounting. When you go and you look for it, they say they get these numbers and they estimate it from the organizers. Imagine, this is like believing Jesse when you ask him how many girlfriends he had in college. Divide by 4. Okay, so maybe
7 million.
Yes. I will give credit where credit's due. It was largely nonviolent and non-confrontational. There were idiots that said terrible things. If you went and you asked them, they would say, "I hope Charlie Kirk dies." That was happening a lot, and you can call them old. They called Trump rallies old. Speaking of Charlie Kirk, he was the one who single-handedly destroyed that narrative with Turning Point. But again, I've said this before, this is an imaginary solution to an imaginary problem. If you look at their list of grievances, they're concepts. They cannot be measured. This is why Republicans are so popular now. Crime, drugs, immigration are real things that generate statistics. You can measure it. I don't think you can measure, I know CNN will come up with it, measure a stat for authoritarianism. It's gone up 137% since 2023. But right now, you can't. If you could measure authoritarianism, as Jesse points out, shutting down schools, parks, and speech would make Joe Biden the king of kings. But you're not going to measure that. So why do they believe in it? And you hit on this. Democrats are not used to seeing action. When Trump would say it doesn't always have to be this way, they didn't know what that meant. It's like, wait a second, you mean you can deport illegals? You can lock up recidivist criminals? Why didn't we think of that? Action. What is action? See, we have a conversation. That's our action. Let's have a conversation. Let's figure out a committee, but they never did a damn thing. And now you're seeing Democrats going, especially like in San Francisco, that city's on the mend. It's because they're actually doing stuff. They're arresting recidivists. They're hiring more cops. So I think it's like, when Trump said, "I work my ass off," that's exactly what it is. And they are not used to seeing it. They're in a shock. I think about the interviews that we were seeing of black people in D.C. and Memphis and Chicago talking about the crime crackdown. They weren't talking about monarchy. They were talking about safety in their streets. That was important to them. You compare that to the interviews of the people on Saturday. Largely white, older, soft academic bodies who can afford to march for conceptual fears that don't exist, not real fears like mugging or carjacking or looting of their small businesses. They, however, God, they're so lucky. Imagine how lucky you are on a Saturday that this is your problem. I bet if you walked out there to that group and you said, "Have any of you ever been mugged? Has any of your businesses been looted? Have you ever been carjacked? Or do you know somebody that has been a victim of that?" They wouldn't raise their hand. How lucky are they that they get to spend their afternoon not worrying about the things that everybody who lives in a city does? I think that's the story. Generally, imaginary concerns are harmless until they become harmful. When they become the narrative, suddenly you will see Charlie Kirk. Again, he gets shot and killed. Why? Because an amplified, phony narrative made him Hitler. Why was Trump shot at? Same reason. So this is harmless for now.
What a great way to start off the week, guys.
Congressional Democrats are celebrating what they consider a victorious weekend with the No Kings rallies all across the country. This comes as we near the start of a 4th week of the partial government shutdown. Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram tells us where things stand tonight from Capitol Hill.
Democratic political royalty vowing a farewell to kings.
We will not bow down to any monarch.
This is what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Democrats believe the rallies electrify their base and could boost midterm turnout.
Millions of people you saw in the streets as protesters on Saturday become organizers in 2026 for us to take back Congress.
But Republicans say Democrats must be careful, aligning with progressives.
If these same left-wing groups have their way, Democrats will be keeping up the shutdown for a long time to come.
Democrats say congressional Republicans must stand up to President Trump.
Republicans don't do anything without getting permission from their boss. Donald Trump clearly wants the government shut down.
But Republicans believe the government shutdown backfires on Democrats.
If they think he's this king, why would they cede all of the power to the executive branch?
There are still no formal talks to end the shutdown.
We're hoping the Democrats become much less deranged.
Democrats say President Trump is key.
If he will engage, we'll find a path forward.
The government is laying off 1,400 workers who safeguard the nation's nuclear stockpiles. What keeps you up at night about what parts of this federal government are not operating?
Every day that the government is shut down, it is a danger to the American people.
There's particular concern about air traffic controllers.
Their next paycheck comes a week from Tuesday, and in that paycheck there will be no dollars.
Air traffic controllers are now working gig jobs to stay afloat. The White House is hunting for ways to pay controllers, and the GOP could dare Democrats to oppose a bill paying essential workers. Brett?
Chad Pergram live on Capitol Hill. Chad, thanks.
We're joined now by two people who've been digging into these No Kings protests. Azra Nomani, editor with The Pearl Project. Jason Rant, Seattle Red talk show host. Azra, let's start with you. Are these, protests simply, organic, people, emailing maybe on social media and so forth? So it all just came together, grassroots from the people?
Absolutely not. This is a protest industry. And so what I did is what I've learned to do in journalism, which is follow the money. And I established that there's 260 organizations that were behind this No Kings protest. And as Jenica Pounds, a computer scientist with Data Republican, said to me, they have built an empire, these left-wing organizations, using nonprofit status to use the machine that we have in America to wage a war, a political war on Donald Trump. And so everything was orchestrated. It was political theater from beginning to end, from social media. And the real question for people is the fact that these organizations we're living rent-free, basically tax-free in America, pulling off these protests.
Yeah, it seems like, Jason, there are hundreds of organizations behind these protests. It's not one particular organization, but it is like, I really think it's actually their social life. I don't know if because we don't have clubs, community civics organizations anymore, they think those are racist. I don't know. But this is as close to church as many, not all, but many of the protesters who showed up really have anymore.
Yeah, they don't believe in God, but they do believe in this kind of activism, and this is what they do professionally. And they're taking advantage of different tax codes like 501c4 status, which a lot of these organizations are. Those are supposed to be social welfare organizations, and they're allowed to get political, but they don't have to disclose their donor list, which is how all of this dark money ends up getting funneled here. I mean, in the case of No Kings, you have Indivisible, which is the primary organization behind it. It gets funding, however, from places like the George Soros Foundation, his Open Society foundations. They're getting that kind of money, and then they're getting institutional support from all of these other groups that Azra just pointed out. Everything from the mainstream stuff like the ACLU, but also to groups like the Communist Party of America, where they might not donate directly to Indivisible, but what they do is they share their contact list, or they reach out to their contact list, say, hey, show up at so-and-so for this event, and the money that they do end up spending, these groups in general, generals for like signage, things like that, but also the professional activists who show up, who then use this to get more contact information for the people who show up and then solicit for funds for donations from them.
Yeah, Open Societies Foundation, by the way, gave us a statement saying, we support a wide range of independent organizations that work to deepen civic engagement through peaceful democratic participation. Our grantees make their own decisions about their work consistent with the law and the terms of their grant agreements. I don't think, Azra, a lot of pro-life organizations that were truly fighting something noble, the slaughter of millions of babies in the womb, I don't think they got any money from George Soros. I certainly don't think parents groups that you helped launch years ago in Fairfax County, Virginia, I don't think they got any help. Only a particular ideology gets help from the Open Society Foundation.
Yeah, I mean, they are basically fueling the machine. And Jason mentioned the 501c4 organizations that are political organizations, allowed to do a limited amount. But according to my data analysis, about 100 of the organizations are 501c3. And they are supposed to do very little political work. They are absolutely supposed to be nonpartisan. But some of the names of these groups is literally resist Trump. That's not very subtle there. And then build the resistance, along with, as Jason was mentioning, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They bring the foot soldiers to this movement and create this myth of the marching millions. And I want everybody to know that, this is theater. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But it's an industry and it must be checked.
Well, Jason, finally, do you think, as Trump said, this in any way is representative of a wide swath of the American electorate?
I think he's correct in that it clearly isn't. I mean, I heard a lot of the language of this is what democracy looks like. No, democracy looks like the Electoral College map, where you had 77 million voters who voted for Donald Trump and 312 Electoral College votes. That's what democracy looks like. These are folks who are protesting democracy because they're upset that they lost the last election. And the good news is, despite a lot of people showing up, they're not really going to get anything done here.
Yeah, sour grapes didn't sound too good for a day of protest, so they just called it No Kings, because no one believes in that rally that Donald Trump is actually a monarch. It's the most ridiculous branding I've ever seen. Azra, Jason, thank you both.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.